Another day and another Biden gaffe. The United States president appeared confused when questioned about a hostage deal in the Israel-Hamas war yesterday. Let's watch.
Are we expecting a hostage deal anytime soon?
Yes.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, where?
Over in, I was talking about.
You're talking about we're pushing it. I don't. There's no expectation at this point, but we are pushing it.
Meanwhile, the New York Times just came out with an investigation. During the first 6 weeks of the war in Gaza, Israel routinely used one of its biggest and most destructive bombs in areas that it designated safe for civilians, according to an analysis of visual evidence by the New York Times. Now, the video investigation focuses on the use of 2,000-pound bombs in an area of southern Gaza where Israel had ordered civilians to move for safety. Now, while bombs of that size are used by several Western militaries, munitions experts say they're almost never dropped by U.S. forces in densely populated areas anymore. So let's start with Biden, and then we'll come back to this. I think the reporter was a little taken aback. He was like, oh, so there is a hostage deal? That's great news. What are the details? And then Biden was forced to concede that there is no such hostage deal. Maybe he's pushing for one. Maybe he would like, a pause or some kind of temporary ceasefire to resume so that can take place. But he seemed confused. I mean, we got to be fair to him. Maybe he misheard the question. Maybe he was thinking about, I don't know, the Venezuela situation that I think we're going to discuss later. Or maybe he's just, not, it takes a couple extra seconds to calculate what's being discussed.
Yeah, it was loud out there. He had a hard time hearing. He's old. It could be a number of things. But Biden commonly is spewing false information to the press. And I think he knows it while he's doing it. When he was asked about the Al-Shifa hospital, he said, yes, there is a command center there. Absolutely. He was sure of it. And then when asked what proof he had that the Al-Shifa hospital, Gaza's most important hospital. It was its busiest hospital. It had the best medical technology. They said it was a Hamas command center. The Israeli Defense Forces released footage of the supposed tunnels underneath the command center. And when Biden was directly asked, what evidence do you have that this is a command center used by Hamas? He said, I won't tell you. And that's ridiculous. Of course there was no evidence. If he had evidence and was sure it was a command center, he would say something to the effect of, I can't disclose the evidence that we have, but we are positive it's a command center. Also, if the U.S. had intelligence that one of their allies was absolutely positive that there was a command center for a terrorist group under a hospital, there's no chance that intelligence would be unreliable. So it seems that Biden is spewing whatever he thinks is most useful for the administration's position at the time he's asked the question. So it could be the case in this particular scenario that he was confusing Venezuela with Israel-Palestine, and that's why he followed up with, wait, where? But it could also be the case that he's just giving the answer that's most convenient at the time. Later, of course, now we know that there's been an investigation by the Washington Post and that they didn't find that the Al-Shifa hospital was a command center used by Hamas. It doesn't matter. The White House, in coordination with Israel, is allowed to say what they need to say. And by the time we find that it's false, the media has moved on. And I think Biden keeps getting away with it. He's going to keep doing it.
Yes, it does seem that reporting on the hospital, calling it a command center for Hamas was an exaggeration, as far as we can tell now. That was an overreach by Israeli intelligence claims or U.S. intelligence claims. I don't know that U.S. intelligence did make that claim, but we certainly didn't contradict a claim by Israel. And now, as this investigation by the Washington Post has pretty persuasively shown, was definitely not being used as a command center. I mean, the tunnels are there, and it's possible that there was a Hamas military presence there, and they were used. But the idea that this was a central hub of activity for Hamas, which justified Israel going in, making the hospital lose its special protected status. You can't, just target hospitals unless they are being used for some military purpose, and then they would lose their protection. That, again, it does seem like I think you're right that it was a profound exaggeration and wrong to claim that it was a command center, a wrong piece of information that Joe Biden very credulously embraced and recirculated.
Yeah, it was found that the tunnels don't connect to the Al-Shifa hospital. So they went through the tunnels and they found that they don't connect at all to the Al-Shifa hospital, which tells me if you're dropping 2,000-ton bombs on residential areas that you've designated as safe areas for Palestinians in Gaza to go, and if you're attacking hospitals where many infants died in the ICU, they removed food, fuel, and electricity. This was a hospital civilians relied on to survive. Not just people who were suffering injuries from the carpet bombing of Gaza, but people who regularly need medical care, people who have lifelong illnesses, infants that were in the NICU. So you have all these reasons for people to be in the hospital, and then for Israel to come in and siege the hospital where some civilians also decided to take shelter because they were absolutely positive, so positive that they had a CGI generation of what the tunnels looked like under the hospital. It turns out the tunnels were not there connecting to the other Hamas tunnels. They showed a video of an elevator shaft when reporters were allowed into the Al-Shifa hospital. So they continued on with this lie. Why? Because they wanted to attack a hospital, because they didn't want Palestinians to survive after they bombed residential neighborhoods. Why are they bombing the areas that they're designating as safe spaces? Because they don't want Palestinian civilians to survive. It's very clear in their actions and their words. They said that there are no innocents in Gaza. This is what they genuinely believe. And the United States needs to absolutely stop supporting Israel, which very clearly has one intent, and it is to kill as many Palestinians as possible.
Yeah, I think it's a huge blow to the credibility of the IDF that this claim did not turn out to be correct, and they have every right to target genuine Hamas terrorists, Hamas command centers. They should not just attack hospitals for the fun or the sport of it. Is cruel and insane. And if they want international support for what they're doing, they need to be far more discerning and not put us in the position that they put Biden in, or Biden just embracing whatever they say. This is what you need to be skeptical of government sources. It's right to be skeptical of government intelligence. I think it's right to be somewhat skeptical. You have to see what everybody's saying about the issue and try to make an independent conclusion based on the evidence available. And based on the evidence we now have, that was not accurate information, and that is a major blow to the credibility, I think, of some of this operation. That does it for us for today. Jessica and I will be back with you next week at some point, and more Rising at a later date.